How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about a new movie, Night of the Animated Dead. This is a remake of the George Romero classic Night of the Living Dead. This is from 2021, directed by Jason Axinn, and actually has a pretty good cast to it. We got Dule Hill, who you guys may know as Gus from Psych. We also have Katharine Isabelle, and then Gus's co-star, Sean on Psych. James Roday Rodriguez is also in this. You have Katee Sackhoff and Josh Duhamel. This is a pretty good cast, and strangely enough, not really advertised on this box. Like, as far as I can see, it's nowhere on the slipcover, and you have to take the slipcover off so you can actually read the credit line. And it's weird, you have a cast this good, and you don't advertise it? Like, I can tell you, a lot of sci-fi fans would buy this movie if they knew Katee Sackhoff was in it, but no actor credits on the box. That's weird. But yeah, the cast is probably one of the better elements of this movie. Pretty good, every now and then a weird line reading from someone, but for the most part, pretty good acting. This is also based on the script by John Russo and George A. Romero, and I don't think they credit a new writer. They do trim stuff out and they do change a few things, but it's pretty much the original. And yeah, let's talk about that. The original Night of the Living Dead, the George A. Romero one, that one's copyright free, and in turn, you have a lot of people playing around with the franchise. You know, part of the copyright free nature is why zombies took off so big. But you have in turn, you know, a bunch of remakes, you know, some very official, some only semi-official. But there's been 3 major remakes before this. The 1990 Tony Todd one, obviously the king. Tom Savini directing it, George A. Romero returning to rewrite his original script. If you guys are only going to watch one of the remakes, definitely the 1990 one. That one is really, really good. And then you get 3D and the weird British one, Reanimation. Those aren't as great. Definitely look for the 1990 remake. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. But so yeah, this is like the 4th major remake. And this one is animated, which is pretty rare for the really, really big Night of the Living Dead extended franchise. Although, not technically the first one, because there's that Darkest Dawn / Origins movie. But yeah, still a rarity. But if you guys don't know, there's been a ton of Living Dead stuff. And, like, the whole extended franchise with semi-official movies, there's like over 25 of them. So this is the newest in a long line of remakes, and I believe another remake is gonna come out pretty soon. And then we even have a Day of the Dead TV show. So, you know, I saw this and I'm not really surprised. You know, there's always gonna be more Night of the Living Dead stuff, and hey, I'm all down for that if it's cool, new stuff. But that's the thing with this one. New stuff. This is a pretty straightforward remake, and it's gonna remind people of like the Psycho remake with Vince Vaughn, how it's one of those remakes that stays pretty much along the main path of the first one. The Vince Vaughn Psycho remake was nearly shot for shot. In this one they do change more stuff around, but this is pretty much a direct remake, and I'm kind of curious, you know, what you guys think of that. Is the animation, you know, being new and different, is that going to be enough for you guys to want to watch this? You know, is just animating it enough to encourage a new watch? Personally, Night of the Living Dead, I find to be one of the most rewatchable movies of all time. I've seen it so often, so, you know, popping this in, it is very similar. But, you know, you set back into the old groove and you're like, oh, hey, Night of the Living Dead's on. So, yeah, even though it's pretty similar, I'm always down for watching Night of the Living Dead again. But that's going to be one of those things that gets people, is it is very similar. the basic plot, no major spoilers, but you start off with Barbara and Johnny going to their father's grave where they encounter a madman. She runs from him to a farmhouse and finds that it's not just one guy, but there are several strange, creepy figures going on a murder spree. Zombies. And in the farmhouse, she would also meet her co-star, Ben. And the two have to survive the night, and more people do show up. So, very, very similar. And most of the changes are very, very little things. You know, like there's one part where they're doing a montage, you know, boarding up the place, and there is like a split screen element. So that's a very obvious different shot. There's lots of shots that are slightly different. There's also like when Ben's moving the body from upstairs, you get to see him pull the body past a series of photographs on the wall that kind of give you a clue as to who this family was. And I did like, you know, new and different things like that, but it's pretty much the same. We get one new scene. In the original movie, Ben talks about how he got to the farmhouse, and he talked about Beekman's Diner. And here, rather than just hearing him say that, you actually get a flashback to Beekman's Diner. You get to see Ben find the truck. You get to see the gas truck explode and all the zombies fly off of it. And that was cool to see, and it was one of the big changes. And that I really did like, and I wish there was more like that. I wish they found new ways to add in new scenes. You know, I talked about the Tony Todd remake earlier. That struck such a perfect balance in giving us enough of the old one where it really still felt like Night of the Living Dead, yet giving us just enough new stuff where it was interesting and you didn't quite know exactly where it was going. The Tony Todd one's really good. But here, it is very, very similar, and I do want to stress that. Like, almost beat for beat, and, you know, like, I've seen it so many times that I'll notice, like, oh, hey, they cut out a line here, or this shot's slightly different, but it is, for the most part, really minimal changes with the exception of the Beekman's Diner scene. Now, one thing they did change, and I'm glad they did, is they added in a little bit more gore. The zombies, when they're walking around, are much more likely to have, like, missing pieces. You know, like you can see a rib cage, maybe one's eyeball is all broken up or something. And when they attack the zombies, they're much more likely to, like, chop off a hand or lose a few fingers or something like that. So there is more gore, because the original one, a hyper low budget live action film, gore takes a lot more to do. So when you do a cartoon remake and it costs you more or less the same thing, you know, to draw whatever you want, why not make the zombie fall apart a little more? So that is cool. And the thing is, the deaths, a lot of the main character deaths, in particular the two that die in the truck, the gore does get pushed up, you know, and then sometimes later they shoot someone in the head and the face falls apart. So there is some gore, but I mean, I get to see a little bit of what I think would be pretty interesting, but then they don't push it quite enough, you know? Like, I really wish, you know, you're doing an animated version of Night of the Living Dead, you can do whatever you want. I really wish they had taken the time and orchestrated a few new kills, you know? Like a few new, say, zombie kills, or change the way a character dies. I wish they could have just punched it just a little bit more. And I really think that that would have been a lot better, you know? So it's cool to see that they added more gore. It's cool that the zombies fall apart a lot more and a lot better. But it's just one of those things, like, if they pushed it a little bit farther and gave us some really cool kills, I think that would have really helped this movie. It's one of the things that it can do. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the animation. A lot of people are harping on this, and, you know, I kind of wanted to save it to the end because I didn't want to just dogpile on it. But yeah, the animation is kind of cheap looking. The backgrounds are actually pretty good. They got a nice painterly quality, and every now and then you'd get a digital model. In particular, the cars, when they have to drive, they just go ahead and make a digital model, and they don't look bad. The character designs are incredibly, you know, just standard, like, hey, draw this character from the movie, there, I drew him, that's fine. There's no style about it, you know, it's just a standard cartoon version of the characters we've seen, and there's no heavy animation style, which I definitely would have preferred, you know. The shot choices with the animation are all very standard and simple. You know, there's no really cool, like, hey, we're gonna redo this movie and we can put the camera wherever we want and we can have whatever we want happen. What if we came up with a cool shot? There's none like that. And actually, when you get people that do side-by-sides, a lot of Romero shots are much more dynamic than this movie's shots, and yeah, that is kind of sad. You know, it is a pretty standard, straightforward animation. And I can't confirm this, but just watching it, it feels like they're doing, I think they call it animating by twos at times, where instead of 24 frames, you do 12 frames, and, you know, it saves a lot of time and money, but, you know, it's just every now and then the animation just seems a little jerky, and I'm like, I bet they're doing 12 FPS there. So that's a thing too. So the animation, it's not great. And, like, you know, if it was just a fan doing this, if it was just, you know, someone going, hey, I'm going to draw a Night of the Living Dead cartoon and post it on the internet, I'd be like, cool, great, that's fun, you know. But, I mean, this is WB. It's got the shield here, you know. I really wish they had just put out a little more money and tried to impress us a little bit with this animation, or do something cool, or do more that you could only do in animation. But as it stands right now, it's a slight gore effects upgrade. And I mean, I'll take more gore, I guess. It's just, I really wish that they had done a lot more with this. You know, there's potential here. You could do crazy cartoon things, you know. And I really feel like you're doing an animated remake. Ask yourself, what could I do with animation that doing a live action film, it would be harder to do? And you do get a little bit and more gore effects, but I really wish that they just gave this just a little bit more of a budget, a little bit more attention, and just tried to impress us. But as it stands, it's Night of the Living Dead again, you know, pretty straightforward. And I like Night of the Living Dead. This is an excuse to watch it again, to see it slightly differently. You know, like with the original Night of the Living Dead. Every now and then you gotta watch the color version. Every now and then you gotta watch the 3D version. You know, and if someone makes a funny edit, you know, hey, yeah, I'll watch that too. So, Night of the Living Dead, like I said, one of the most rewatchable films of all time. And I'm always down to watch it again. I'm a big fan of animation, so it's a cool, interesting style choice. But overall, just an incredibly standard, straightforward adaptation. It's not bad per se, especially because George Romero's version was good, and a lot of that carries over to this version. The story being exactly the same, well, the story's good. I wish, you know, like that one scene where we got to see Beekman's Diner, all of a sudden I was so much more invested and interested, because, you know, it was like, hey, it's something we haven't seen before, it's new lore, you know, and I'm like, what if you did something else? What if you added something? What if you showed us how that first person in the farmhouse died, you know, add in that scene, you know, like, was it the 30th or 40th anniversary where Russo added in some new scenes, you know, that wasn't received super well, but, you know, if you're gonna do a remake anyway, I'd like to see a few more new scenes, you know, so it's fine, I liked it enough, but yeah, it's incredibly, you know, just, hey, go through the process, go through the motions, here's your cartoon. And hey, I like cartoons, I like Night of the Living Dead, it's just something I wish was bigger and better, but hey, it is what it is, and when it comes to purchasing, if you want to see it, it's fine, you know, but it's not necessarily something you have to run out and go see. But if you're going to only see one remake, again, go with the 1991. But anyway, I'm curious to know what you guys thought of it. You know, if you thought the animation was enough to make it worth buying. I don't know. I'll add it into the collection and I won't regret it, but yeah, it's not the best thing ever. But anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Romero Zombies extended franchise. And there's a lot more to that than you think. There's a bunch of movies and remakes, things like Day of the Dead 2, you know? So, if you want to see me talk about more Romero Zombies, you can click there and see more. I'm always working on that playlist. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Romero Zombies franchise playlist at the bottom. Have a good day now.